Welcome to the Sharpe Way Show. I'm so happy to have you all here this evening, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. What does that mean? You got to look at my mug. Yes, I am here yet again trying to spread whatever you want to call this to the best of my ability all around. So please help me out. Like, comment, share. It does matter. Those algorithms and whatever those things are, they pay attention to that stuff. So click those buttons, share that stuff, and make us all look good. And if you actually want to help out, please head over to patreon.com/sharpeway. Throw me a couple bucks, some of them Biden bucks or Trump bucks or stolen bucks or printed bucks or whatever bucks you got. If you think you can send them over to my way, please do that. If not, no worries. Head on over to the Advocatesorg. Take the human respect test. The link is actually in the description. It's free. Takes about 3 minutes. Share that around. People love it. I love it. It's all good. But no matter what, of course, like, comment, share. I am very lucky today. I have with me columnist, author, all-around cool guy trying to make change in the great state of Tennessee, Cody. How are you, sir?
Larry, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, man. And I'll make sure to support you. I've actually ordered me a Sharpe Way shirt. It's on the way, hopefully. So.
Yes, as you all should go to Zazzle if you want to, Zazzle.com, and type in Sharpe Way, and you can buy a Sharpe Way shirt. It's cool. It looks kind of like this. A little bit, but not exactly. Yep. So I guess the thing I want to bring up with you is I know you've written a lot about what you think the future of the GOP is. And a lot of people who, on both sides of the aisle, right? The Democrats are concerned, Republicans are concerned. What's the future? And right now, to me, as an outsider, I feel like it's kind of up in the air and it really could go kind of any way. What I see, and tell me if I'm off here, is I see the Republican Party breaking up kind of into three right now. One is the neocons, right? The Mitt Romneys of the world who are like, yeah, we're back in charge now, right? There's some of them who are feeling that, right? Like, yeah, finally we get back to being, the Bush Republicans again. Yeah. So that group. Then there's the Tea Partiers that were kind of got pushed to the side a bit, right? The kind of more constitutional conservative types, the Tea Party 2.0 types, right? That type. And then there's still the populist type, the guy who still loves Trump and is just upset that Trump's not there anymore. And I think they're also the ones kind of up in the air right now. Am I off with this or am I right?
Well, the only thing that I would say is I think there's a combination of the MAGA base with the Tea Party base. I mean,
they combine, you think?
Yes, I do. I mean, the perfect embodiment of that is somebody like Matt Gaetz out of Florida. Right. He has advocated, for the pardon of the preemptive pardon of Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. He's for the legalization of marijuana. He's for pulling troops out of Afghanistan and stopping endless wars. And he's actually just went today to help primary Liz Cheney in Wyoming, another neocon. So, okay. And if you look at the most prominent allies for President Trump, it's a lot of Tea Party folks. It's people like Rand Paul, people like Ted Cruz, and of course people like Matt Gaetz, Ron Johnson. These are all people who believe in small government, have never really wavered on small government, and are kind of been, to the side of this libertarian sort of mindset that the Tea Party had originally in 2010, with kind of wavering on, let's go over to criminal justice reform, let's bend a little bit on this war stuff. We're going to be able to attract more independents and more young people to our movement if we can do that. So I think it is actually the Tea Party members in 2010, 2012 combined with the MAGA base. And I think that's the way forward to out neocons like Mitt Romney and like you said, and like Liz Cheney, who are to me dangerous to the party. And they're the people who were, casting the spotlight in the mainstream media because they will call out the Republicans more than they call out, the left or anybody else. But really, I think policy-wise, Tea Party and MAGA is pretty well connected. It's just people hate the Trump people kind of hate when Trump's called out for spending and stuff like that. But I think the allied forces going forward is probably the MAGA and Tea Party base combined.
My worry for the GOP is that even with the power that Trump had for 4 years, maybe even 5, over the party, while the establishment kind of got pushed to the back, right? And they kind of pretended to like him when they really didn't, but they pretended to like Trump so they can get what they wanted. Their back wasn't broken. No. Right? The most establishment Republicans, their back isn't broken. They got smacked around by Trump for 4 years, but their back wasn't broken. And now when Trump got just lost his last election, they're jumping, trying to get back right into play.
Yes.
My concern is that the Tea Party in 2010, while it was powerful up front, kind of just got absorbed.
Wavered.
Really, you're right. It didn't do that. If it would have done that thing, Trump wouldn't have won the election.
Right.
Right. If a Tea Party had actually done this job, a Tea Partier would have won that election. Right. Not Trump. It would have been a Tea Party person, not Trump. So
and they would have nominated Ron Paul instead of Mitt Romney.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So let me ask, what do you think is different this time?
Well, I think Republicans have always been looked at as sort of these lower energy, let's talk about the budget, let's talk about money and stuff like that. But the Democrats have always been this sort of energetic party, like, we're going to fight for you, whether they lie to you or not. They go to these unions and we're going to fight for you. They're the ones that give them passion speeches on the House floor. You didn't see that out of a lot of people besides somebody like Rand Paul or Ron Paul until the MAGA movement started to come in 2016. Now you see these fiery Republicans in these committee meetings. You see fiery defenses of Trump and of bills against abortion. Just a lot. You see more fiery Republicans nowadays, and that's one of the good thing I think Trump did for the party was it gave Republicans a spine. We are always just the people that want people to want to gain trust. We're the people that people would trust with the economy, with their money. We were like bankers. We wanted to make sure that you trust us to have money. That's all we were. But now we have adopted these sorts of policies that are popular with third parties, that are popular with independents, and able to gain those over the party. And we look energetic while we're doing it. We're bringing young people in the party.
So hold on. What I see, right, is my worry is the one person who brought most of the minorities to the party actually was Trump, right? Yes. Trump was one of the best at doing it.
Absolutely.
And now that he's out, do you think that the GOP is going to try to re-energize Trump and kind of bring him back on board and say, okay, come on, help us with the minorities again? Or do you think that they're like, no, go back in your hole in Florida. We don't want nothing to do with you.
Well, it's funny you say that. I saw a couple of hours ago where I think Minority Leader McCarthy and President Trump actually had a meeting and he wants Trump to campaign for his incumbents and maybe to help in some general elections going forward too. So I think there's a happy medium. Right, you don't want Trump to be in every single ad or anything like that. But he brought some of the policies and energy, like I said, into the party that had never been here before. So I think I saw a good analogy is you need a healthy dose of Donald Trump in every sort of campaign. You need the same type of energy. You need to adopt policies like anti-interventionism, criminal justice, and stuff like that he advocated for, and probably did more for those subject areas and policy issues than any Republican or Democrat of the last two or 3 decades. So I think there's some healthy doses you interject into it.
When you interject Trump, though, you also get a negative. You get the QAnon people, right? You get all the people that the Stop the Steal crowd. You get a lot of those people who the establishment just cannot stand. You heard they're trying to get rid of the one woman. I think her name is Representative Green out of Georgia. They're literally trying to get her out of Congress. I mean, they do not want these people around at all. So you get a dose of Trump. I got it. You're right. Trump is exciting, big personality, right? We're going to have the big rally. Makes total sense. Mm-hmm. But along with that comes the QAnon person who's going to start saying, stop the steal and that's where the media is going to look at the QAnon person. The media is not going to look at whatever people might bring. They're going to bring the QAnon person. I mean, is this a double-edged sword?
I think it is, but I think with any cult of personality that you have at the top of your ticket or was former on the top of your ticket, you kind of have to take it with stride at this point. I mean, like somebody like Bernie Sanders or somebody like Ian Amar, who has expressed anti-Semitic views in the past. The Democrat Party still uses that energy and still uses that progressive movement to win elections. So in the same way, there's going to be bad things with any candidate or any cult of personality that you take, but you have to take the positives and interject that into campaigning. I mean, people kind of demonize populism to an extent, and I understand that, but campaigning itself is populism. You're making promises that you probably can't keep. You're making promises for your district. You're making promises for the country that you, honest to God, probably can't do, or you can try to do and you know it's going to fail, but you say it anyway. So I think you just have to use every positive that you can and benefit off of what he's done, or what any cult of personality has done for your party. I think somebody like Bernie Sanders has changed the Democrat Party in a way that has won them elections. It won them back the House and almost won them back as pretty much won them back the Senate.
But with that, what you just said, if you go down that road of winning, back the Senate, if you look at that, I mean, Trump's lost the last 3 elections then, right? If you use that as a metric of measurement, then Trump's lost 2018 because he lost the House, right? right, in 2018. Then lost 2020, his own election. And then lost 2021, he lost Georgia. So if that's your metric, that doesn't make him look good.
Yeah, and I think that's why you have to concentrate on the positives. Again, I think you have to avoid the negatives as much as you can. You kind of have to, I actually am working on a piece right now. I'm not sure which website it's going to be published by, but I think the Republicans, to rebound off of that and to avoid the negatives, you need a healthy dose of populism and campaign issues, but you also need policy advocacy. Sure. You need to call out what the Biden administration is doing. You need to use what these governors have, these fascist lockdowns and fascist mask mandates in states that relate to people. These are things that affect every United States citizen. So I think you have to concentrate on policy, populist campaign language in the way that you advocate for and against the small government policy for, and then anti-fascist big government policy against, right? And then you use the campaign issues that we have benefited off the last 3 or 4 years, especially like criminal justice and stuff like that. I think that's just a good way to campaign, because you have to find a path forward, right? Like we can't result back to 2008. We probably can't even result back to 2010, because movements just cannot be repeated and the same goal can be accomplished. 2010 worked. We have to find our new movement now, and maybe that's the Patriot Party movement. Maybe it's called I don't know what the Freedom Party movement. I don't know, something like that.
Let me grab some comments if I can. Mm-hmm. Connie says, hello, good evening, Mr. Handsome. I think she's talking to me, but you're a good-looking guy. She might be talking to you too, Kenny. I don't know. But I think it's coming for both of us. There we go. Yes, that's good. So that's great. Let's see. Lower Lib, what's up? Liberty Bucks. There we go. I'll call them Liberty Bucks. Whatever you want to call them. If you want to throw some my way, that's fine. Chris brings up, would Libertarian Party ever consider joining together with the Patriot Party? I would say probably not. The odds are any movement like the Patriot Party or Tea Party 2.0, as Austin Peterson has called it, Tea Party 2.0. But whatever that movement might be, I have a feeling they're going to get absorbed eventually into the Republican Party. Whether that is 1 year or 5 years, I think they'll be absorbed. Libertarian Party is the only third party that actually has ballot access in all 50 states. It's the only real third party. The other ones aren't really real. And to create a Patriot Party on its own, while it's possible, is a monster task to get through all of the hoops. And the states do not like anybody else being on the ballot except Democrats and Republicans. That's all they want. So could the Patriot Party do it? Sure, but it would take at least $50 million just to get ballot access, minimum. And you still might not get it. So it would be really hard. So my gut would say no. Kenny, do you have an opinion on this?
I think what the best way we can answer that question is I think the Patriot Party has to convert as many Libertarian Party voters over as they can. I mean, you need people voting in Republican primaries for the smallest government candidate possible. I mean, I don't see any reason why Libertarian Party members shouldn't vote for Rand Paul in 2022 or 2024. Like, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't happen.
Libertarian running.
Sure. Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Yes.
That's fair.
But like, no Libertarian running. I get it. But Libertarian running, I want you to vote Libertarian. I want to build a party up, of course.
See, and that's why I think something like if you have a Libertarian Party candidate and they're running the general election, but there's no other Libertarian candidate running in a Libertarian primary, if there are Libertarian primaries in Kentucky, a Libertarian voter could just as easily register as a Republican and vote for the most small government candidate in a Republican primary, and then vote in the general election for the Libertarian candidate.
I actually was, when Austin Peterson ran in Missouri, I actually endorsed him as a Republican because the Libertarian was going to get on the line no matter what. Right. Libertarian guy was going to get on the line no matter what. Mm-hmm. Now you had an option of who was going to be the Republican. And in Tennessee, not in Tennessee, in Missouri, you could do that. So I said, look, vote for Austin Peterson in the Republican primary. The Libertarian guy's on the ballot no matter what. Right. So I do that instead. Get Austin on. So I see where you're going with that. Okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. So all right. So it looks like Jimmy's ordering a T-shirt. Thank you, Jimmy. I appreciate that, my friend. Absolutely. Chris seems to think though that the GOP is finished. I've heard that many times. Right. I remember it was actually Bill Maher, obviously a Democrat, who said exactly the opposite. He's like, this is just a story. He's like, this isn't true. Every time the GOP has a bad time, people go, they're finished. And they're never finished. Yeah. I don't know. I'm more on the Bill Maher side of this. You don't think the GOP is finished, do you?
No, I mean, we survived the resignation of Richard Nixon. I think we can survive a defeat of Donald Trump. And when we have, in 2 years, when we gained the most seats back in the House pretty much ever in a net game, we have incumbents. We defended every single incumbency seat. We're poised to take back the House in 2022 and maybe even the Senate. No, I don't think we're anywhere near finished. I think the GOP has been through a lot worse. I mean, a couple of defeats is going to defeat one of the oldest parties in United States history. I don't believe that's true. Although I understand people's criticism. I understand people who are angry with the GOP, even GOPers who are angry at the establishments. I mean, I understand it, but I think we're gonna survive.
Okay. RG says the Patriot Party would be better than the established Republicans like Mitt and the such. Tea Party / MAGA is an ally to liberty. So I think he agrees with you. RG's on the same page as you are.
Yep.
He's saying that's the combo. You know what? If I have to have a GOP, I'd rather have one that's liberty leaning, obviously, right? I mean, obviously I want libertarians. I'm blatantly biased. But if the GOP looked a whole lot more like Austin Peterson, it's not a bad GOP, right?
Absolutely. If they look like Rand Paul, Austin Peterson, yeah, I mean, even to an extent, Ted Cruz, if you want to go more of establishment Republican, if it looked more like that, we would have about 70 seats in the Senate, in my opinion. But.
Okay. Shelley says, libertarians are being mentioned all over the place. Anyone know why? Yes, because they've named us bad people. We are now extremists. That's the reason why.
If you're an enemy of John Brennan, you're doing a good job, in my opinion.
Yes, John Brennan said we're all enemies. We're extremists, Shelley. That's what we are, extremists. When you think about Larry Sharpe, the first word comes to your mouth, extremist.
Oh yeah,
no doubt, totally extremist. Yeah. Absolutely, yes. We have to stop believing that the old parties are going to become our saviors. They aren't. It's true, Pete. I think that's absolutely true. I think the only way we're really going to become, as I've said before, I don't think this party or this country needs saviors. A savior. We need hundreds of heroes. We need lots of people at the local level to start doing the right thing again and again and again. Repeatable, imitatable. Is that a word? It is now. Sure. It is now, right? So yes. So I think we have to do that. That is what I'm really looking for. I get what you're saying completely. So, all right. Let's see here. The GOP is going to squabble amongst themselves for a year. I think you're right, Matt. I think that has to still happen, right? I think it still has to happen.
Yes.
And there's also going to be personalities like, I should be the new leader. No, I should be the new leader. It's going to be a lot of that too. I think you're right. 4 year, let the Dems walk all over them and find unity in 2 years, just in time to have a poor showing in 2022. I think there's a little bit to that, though, Kenny, right? I think the Democrats now, because they run so much, I'm going to give Biden credit. Okay. Biden absolutely has a better, nicer rhetoric than Trump. It's nicer and it's better, no question. But it's not. His actions aren't unity.
Right.
His actions are not unity. I'll give him credit on the speech is better. That's true. Mm-hmm. Actions, not so much. He's basically just saying, I'm not even listening to you guys. I'm signing stuff.
Yeah. Here's 33 executive orders.
Yes, I'm just signing stuff. So if you guys want to watch, that's fine, but that's it. I'm just signing stuff. So I feel like the Republicans are gonna get their butt kicked for the next year or two. I think Matt's got a valid point here.
Maybe, especially if Biden keeps signing executive orders, I think we got to have some fight and passing some sort of defensive legislation to fight against those sort of executive orders, especially in state legislatures. But it's going to be a fight for the next 6 months, in my opinion. It's going to be a fight for it until.
A whole lot shorter.
Yeah, I think it's a whole lot shorter because there's going to be a time where campaigns start. There's going to be a time where we're going to need fundraising. And everybody's going to get right back together, partly because of the selfishness of wanting to get reelected, right? I mean, like Matt Gaetz knows and Liz Cheney knows that at some point they've got to go back to the Republican establishment and Republican Party fundraisers and say, all right, enough of this bickering. We've got to raise money. So it's not that
right?
Sorry, Larry, what did you say? I'm sorry.
I said they have an advantage. If you look at last year, the Democrats had advantage. They were on the outside looking in. Trump was the big bad guy. So they all united to fight the big bad guy. I think now Republicans kind of have that now. They're on the outside, and now they got to fight the big bad Democrat. So now they got to get together, otherwise they're going to get beat up. The Democrats are still in a civil war too, right?
Yes.
The AOC side versus the Biden side. They're in a civil war also. But that civil war was put on hold because we got to get Trump. So we're going to shut up. We're going to go get Trump. And now they're back to fighting again. So, you know what? I see where Matt's going, but maybe I'm moving more towards what you're saying. Maybe it's going to be shorter than 2 years. Yeah. Because eventually they're just going to be tired of getting beat up by Democrats.
Yeah. They hate socialism more than they hate each other, unfortunately.
I think that may be true. They may want to get back together just on, fine, I don't like you, but these guys got to go. So fine.
Let's hold hands and harmonize for a little while.
I think I'm okay. I could buy either one of those. Adrian says, I wish Ron Paul won the presidency. Me too.
Me too.
The country would have changed for the better. Absolutely. I completely agree. Yes.
No argument from me.
There we go. So let me move down to that next piece then. Should the Republicans now, in the Senate specifically in the Senate, but also in the House, obviously, should their goal be the same as it was when Obama won? To stop Obama, so in this case, to stop Biden, to make Biden a one-term president, to not get his stuff through. Is that the number one priority? Mitch McConnell said after Obama won that the number one priority was trying to make Obama a one-term president and trying to stop everything he did. Now, the reason why I would think they wouldn't do that this time is because after Obama won, the Republicans, even though they lost, they were still united. Mm-hmm. Now that's not the case. Am I wrong?
I think that the goal, I'll answer the first question, the first part. I think there does have to be sort of a unification to fight against the Biden administration, right? I mean, with Obama, with Trump, you're going to have to see some sort of unification because they are the thought leaders of the party. Barack Obama was for the Democrat Party and Donald Trump was for 4 years of the Republican Party. So if you're fighting against policy and you're fighting against socialism and you're fighting for small government, Joe Biden pretty much has to be your target. Now, Nancy Pelosi can be too, as well as Chuck Schumer can. But I think that sort of shift toward, I guess, if you're putting the crosshairs on some sort of target, I think that does need to be the target for the next 4 years is to fight against socialist policy, is to call out how he signed 33 executive orders in 2 weeks when Trump and Bush and all them just signed probably 1 or 2.
But does it make political sense to not fight Biden, but instead to say, fight the squad, or to find another bad guy, right, to focus on? And my only issue is, and I know a lot of people don't like when I say this, it's hard to actually hate Biden, right?
Sure.
He's not a big personality.
No.
Right? Trump's a big personality. So easy to love, easy to hate. He's a big personality, right? You can easily go either way. Biden's not a big personality. It's a whole lot harder to hate him. But someone like AOC, a big personality. Easy to love, easy to hate.
Right.
So is that a better target?
So I think in the same way that a lot of Republicans ran these sort of campaign ads in these moderate districts of, the Antifa riots and stuff like that, you need to do the same to Joe Biden. It's not necessarily showing Joe Biden's face on these TV ads and saying, look at the demon that Joe Biden is. It's what he's done. It's these policies that they're advocating for. It's the people that they empower. I mean, I think you do show, advertisements of the squad. I mean, it works. I mean, for one, it's just a good campaign strategy when you see somebody advocating for universal health care, when you see Ian Omar making these comments about 9/11. I mean, they just make for good campaign ads, but I think they're good targets because I think that's where the Democrat Party is going. I think that progressive sort of wing of the party has influenced Joe Biden to be a lot more progressive than he ever thought about being even 6 years ago. So I think there is a fine line between saying, okay, Joe Biden's a bad guy, Joe Biden's a demon, and saying, okay, here's the policies that he's passed, here's the things he's allowing to happen with his party, here's the people that he's allowing to become stars within his party, and that's what you sort of had to concentrate on. It's not necessarily Joe Biden.
Okay, so you shifted a bit. Mm-hmm. I get it. I guess the other issue that I'm seeing here is if they establish a third party that truly splits the GOP, like the Patriot Party actually becomes a separate party, right? You'll never have anything but Dems elected for next generation. It's Absolutely. A valid point too, right? If all of a sudden they decide that, oh, you know what, we can't get along, And this, by the way, though, what Matt's point also goes towards Democrats. Mm-hmm. The Democrats, the Democratic Socialists of America right now are not a political party. They are a wing of the Democratic Party.
Right
at the moment. But there's a chance that they might go, Biden is nowhere near left enough for us. I mean, none of them are in the cabinet. His executive orders have nothing to do with them. He's ignoring them completely. The memes about, Bernie Sanders being sitting on the outside were real. I mean, they have not really embraced the hard left of the party. Right. The DSA might pop off and become Democratic Socialists of America.
Just easily.
And they actually have a decent amount of infrastructure, and they have many bodies. A lot of youngsters love that. I mean, I think both sides it could happen. I mean, in my personal view, I love that. 5 parties.
Well, then you'd have ranked choice voting, probably more than likely.
There we go. See, Matt, win, brother. I'm with you. That's it. So, but yeah, I do think that could be a problem. I guess the point has to be then the Dems, at least prior to this election, always showed respect to their far left. Mm-hmm. So now, will the Republican establishment show respect to whatever this Patriot Party, Tea Party 2.0, whatever this thing is?
I think you have to.
What happens if they don't? Do you think they double down? Like right now, Democrats are like, you got no place to go, DSA. Shut up. You're not going to them.
Yeah.
Shut up and just do what we say. That's what the Democratic establishment is doing right now.
It is, yeah.
Do Republicans do the same thing?
I don't think so. I think when they look at just pure, I know people don't like polls, but when you look at issue polling, when you look at things that are popular, I think I've said it 3 or 4 times, these sort of policy issues that Donald Trump's been backing on the last 4 years that are things Republicans had never embraced. Like I said, CJ reform, anti-interventionism, things that Republicans never even thought they would be advocating for. I would have never thought, even 5 years ago, we'd have 15 Republicans voting for marijuana legalization, but that happened this year. So I think there has to be this sort of embrace of the Patriot Party in that you have to look at the benefits and you have to look at the negatives. You have to concentrate on the net benefits and let that outweigh on a scale the negatives. So I think the Patriot Party movement is a good thing, in the same way that the Tea Party was. I'll tell you that. I'm sure you remember in 2010, the establishment Republicans did not like the Tea Party whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Cruz was one of the most hated senators for years because of the Tea Party.
They did not like him at all. I agree. They eventually kind of got used to him. But yeah, eventually, initially they didn't like him at all. But I want to talk about respect for just 1 second.
Great.
Larry Sharpe here, host of the Sharpe Way show. And boy, do we need to start coming together and healing now more than ever. Best way to do that? Respect. We got to respect each other so we can start to come together. How can we facilitate that? Head over to the advocatesorg/human respect tests. Yes, there's a test for human respect. You didn't think there was? There is. Take that test. About 3 minutes. That's it. It's done. Share it online. Share it on your social media. Let other people see it. Let them take the test. Share it with others. Let's start talking about respect. Let's start talking about healing. Let's find the right answer for us to move forward. The advocates.org human respect tests. Oh, yes. And that link is in the show description. Just click that. Go there and enjoy. So let me grab a couple more if I can here. Dwayne Whitmer says, you're going to split the vote. Dwayne, what do you know about that, Dwayne? But yeah, no, Dwayne ran for Congress as a Libertarian in Western New York. So thank you very much, Dwayne, thank you for your service, right? For sitting out there and trying to make things happen. I appreciate that. He's teasing you, by the way. So
sure.
Yes. Chris says, we need to find a way to support working Americans in a way that they can afford to run for office on all levels. Yes, it's a very tough thing to do. I agree. If we want more of us who walk amongst us and who understand the issues because they've experienced them firsthand to get elected. You know, this is a big point, right? There's a lot of people who feel like those who represent them don't know who they are. And this is one of the reasons why AOC won. AOC is my congressperson. She literally knocked on my door. I wasn't here when she did it, but she literally knocked on my door, right? So people believed in their heart, they really believed that she's someone like them, like she's here with us, right? Now she's not anymore because now she's too cool for us. But then at least we thought that she was going to be the person who was with us. Doesn't Chris have a point here, Kenny?
Yeah, I think elitism goes across all backgrounds. I think when you have somebody in a suit and tie walking up and knocking on your door, you don't really buy it. But, I learned a very good tool, and I'll give him a shout out. I was a campaign manager about 3 years ago for a guy named Representative Jeremy Fajan, who is the caucus chairman for the Republican caucus of the House of Representatives here in Tennessee. And he always told me that he never, unless he went to Nashville, he never really wore a sports coat that much because he wanted to seem normal. He's a pest control guy. He owns a pest control business. The same guy that he's been for the last 10 years is the same person that he's elected now. Like he goes and sprays people's houses for bugs to this day. Somebody like that needs to relate to normal people. Like yes. Even I believe that people like Mitch McConnell don't understand really the everyday Republican, the everyday Democrat, the everyday independent or libertarian. So that perception does need to change. And I'm not sure what the policy is going forward. I saw where he said something about where people can run for office. I think something like like ballot access and things of that sort need to be advocated for. And I'm a full advocate of that. I'm always going to be a Republican. Likely, I'm not ever going to be a registered libertarian, but I'm all for ballot access. If a party can find enough signatures and raise enough money, and I think restrictions need to go down too.
Sure,
absolutely needs to be put in. I mean, I'm all for that. So I think things like that are the best way forward.
There we go. Jan says, why has the Republican Party changed? Becoming overbearing and becoming excessively conservative over the last, say, 17 to 20 years. And Jan, by the way, is a former Republican.
Sure.
I think there's some truth to that. And I think one of the reasons why you find that is we're now fighting culture wars, right? We're fighting culture wars by default. To your point, Janet, you become more conservative. We're fighting over bathrooms, right? Over things that. Well, and the point I bring up now is right now in the I think in the House they're talking about genderless language, right? Not saying mother or father, but saying parent. Now to be forward, I don't care, right? If it makes you feel better to be called parent rather than mother or father, I'm fine with that. Whatever. If you're in your place and you want everyone to go into the same bathroom, fine. I don't really care. My point is that should be very low on their priorities. Agreed. Like that should be number 500 on their priorities, but it's like number 5. I don't know why it's number 5. It doesn't give my kids a better education, doesn't get me a better job, doesn't help my neighborhood, whether or not we decide whose bathroom goes where or whether you're called parent or father or mother. I think she's right in the way that we have brought these issues to the top.
Yeah, I think social conservatism it's a strange little area of the Republican Party because, for one, most people don't care. I have a feeling that around 70% of voters, or maybe even more, just don't care. They don't want to see it on their television sets. But also, I think the promotion of it has been the main driving force of people becoming more socially conservative. It's not necessarily that people care. They just don't want to really shove in their faces. And I think just the promotion of I guess woke progressivism in every facet of life and schools and things of that sort. I think that's what's led to the Republicans being more socially conservative. But also, I think that you can't be too conservative if you're talking about policy, if you're talking about small government, stuff like that. I saw where she said people have become more conservative. I'm guessing that means social conservatism, and that's what I'm assuming it means. So I think that. But you have a lot of Republicans, like people like Rand and Ted and everybody else who honestly don't care. Even if they're fighting the culture war, they're more saying it's not that we don't support people who believe in this way. It's not that we don't want to fight for their rights, fight for their right to marry, fight for their right to advocate. None of that stuff really comes up. It's just like, don't shove your issues or your personal lives in our spaces. And that's always been the libertarian way of thinking, right? It's don't, as long as you're not bothering me.
Yeah.
But I do feel like the media, especially, is bothering people.
But there's something else that winds up happening with the culture war, and that is, all right. So, someone says, we should put God in schools, right? Some Republican says that. A Democrat immediately goes, you are a religious extremist. You are a crazy evangelical, right? That's the attack. So what do Republicans do? Well, they're going to support the Republican. Go, well, why are you messing with this Republican? Well, then Democrats are on that person's side. And then now they're all fighting, but it's tribal.
Yes.
A bunch of the Democrats actually probably agree with her. And I'm like, yeah, we probably should. Some Democrats actually believe that, right?
Right.
There are many Democrats that are very religious and would love to have God back in school, right? So some of the Democrats are actually going to believe it, but they're going to support their Democrats in their tribe and go, see, religious extremist.
Bigots,
and there are a bunch of Republicans who don't care at all whether God's in the school or not. It means nothing to them. But they're going to jump up and go, So now the fight became a culture war fight when it's really just two tribes who met in the street and started yelling at each other.
Yeah, and tribalism is the issue, and I think it's the best way to address. I forgot her name. Comment. I think tribalism is Jam. That's what's led people to be more conservative or progressive. I think you could say the same way about the Democrats. It's not that they necessarily care if they have a transgender bathroom or not. It's just the fact that some of their party is. You see Republicans criticizing it. And they're like, okay, let's go anti-GOP on this issue because we should go anti-GOP on everything. So I think it is something that's tribalism.
Trump. I found people who either loved or hated Trump and therefore jumped on a train.
Right.
Yeah. It wasn't because they were really Democrats or Republicans. They just hated Trump, so I guess I'm a Democrat. Love Trump, so I guess I'm a Republican. That was it.
Go look at my mentions if you need any mention of that. Every one of them have ex-GOP, Trump, anti-orange man or whatever. Yes. That's all they are. They just hate Trump. They have no personality or political thoughts in mind. They just hate the guy who's in office because he's on TV all the time, unfortunately.
Adam Howe says, I appreciate this analysis, but still find it typical of the current outstanding right-wing blind spot for autocracy. Okay. Authoritarianism, conspiracy culture, and domestic terrorism / extremism. This is a few weeks old now, but this is some of my analysis. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. Anybody want to check it out? Please check that piece. I think, this is a very good point. And this is more almost of an image. This is exploded by an image more than fact, but also based on fact. Mm-hmm. Because of how powerful Trump's personality is, it did make a lot of the Republicans feel like, okay, he's our king. Mm-hmm. Now, we have that here in New York. Cuomo was that way for us in New York State. Whatever he does, Democrats go, he's the best in the world. He's our king. But he's only local. He's only New York State.
Right.
Trump was national. I think Adam's got a point. You look at it and it's like, wow. And something else that Trump doesn't do. He doesn't fight conspiracy at all.
Sure.
Right? He just goes, oh, does that conspiracy help me? Maybe it's true. Maybe. Right. That's what he does. Instead of saying, look, it's not true, guys. You can still support me and love me, but this isn't true. He doesn't do that, and it validates him. I mean, Adam's got a point, right?
I think it's a valid criticism of either party. I think in the same way in 2010 and 2008. It's a good dodging of the question, but I'm still going to acknowledge it. It's a cult of personality problem within politics. It's propping up someone to be the savior and the solver of all problems when sometimes they mess up and nobody's ever willing to acknowledge it. I think the Democrats have the same problem, and it really hurt them. And they had 8 years of Obama and had no identity afterwards. They won a second term of the presidency, lost the House. I don't think it's
true. No. Hold on. Now, when Obama left here, there were literally it's like 17, 18 Democrats on the stage. Like, let's which one do you like? What flavor of Democrat do you prefer?
Sure.
You prefer the Marianne Williamson flavor? You prefer the Tulsi Gabbard flavor? You prefer the Bernie flavor? What flavor do you prefer? Right. And they were all there. And maybe if you're saying there was no heir apparent, I think that's true. But I mean, people were there. I mean, even when Obama left, Hillary just kind of stepped in. If anything, there was an heir apparent for that.
And that was more sort of my.
But Trump leaving, there's an obvious hole in leadership in the Republican Party that didn't exist in the Democratic Party.
So here's more my point, and I'm glad you brought up the Hillary Clinton thing. That was the heir apparent that they thought they were going to have, right? And so she had no opposition, but then this other person, this Bernie Sanders figure, rose up and really shifted the avenue or the path of the party. They thought
really screwed up that.
Right. So that was more my point, is that we need to find what our path's going to be, because after we have anointed somebody king, people anointed George Bush king, people anointed Bill Clinton king. To me, after John F. Kennedy, I always talk about this, John F. Kennedy celebritized the presidency. Mm-hmm. Every president from here on out, unless you find somebody boring like Jimmy Carter or George H.W. Bush, unless you find somebody like that, if you find a president with a personality, the Republicans and Democrats are going to find a way to celebritize that person. And I think, unfortunately, when JFK did that, whoever is at the head of the party, they're going to worship like a king. They're going to worship them and treat them like a god. So it's always hard, especially when you find a winning path, like Trump did in 2016 and even in some of these House races in 2020. It's kind of hard to go away. And in the same way that, when Barack Obama won 8 years of the presidency, it's kind of hard not to follow straight after him. But even now, you see progressives who call out Obama for they call him a neoliberal. Some people even call him a neocon and a warmonger, right? All the time. I mean, I see it so much. If you see the people with the roses besides their name on Twitter, they hate Barack Obama. So it's a strange thing. I think when you anoint somebody king, once you're done with them, unless you're somebody like Trump who's still going to have sort of influence, Barack Obama is still coming and campaigning for people at 4 years after his presidency.
I agree. So, all right, let me go to the thing that's on people's minds: domestic terrorism law. What do you say to someone who opposes domestic terrorism law? And I oppose these laws completely. Mm-hmm. I think it's a bad idea. Everything, and this is my view, everything that was done in the Capitol was already against the law.
Right.
Everything, breaking in, throwing, fire extinguishers at people, that was already against the law, right? So you can put those people in jail for those crimes already, right? You don't need to all of a sudden start a new war on terror internally. Not required at all. I don't know. Where do you stand on this?
I agree with you. I don't believe there needs to be new federal offenses carried on so the federal government can put more people in prison. I'm absolutely agree with you 100% on it.
Well, you see, there's a piece I want to bring up now, and this is coming up with Trump's removal or trial, whatever's going to happen. A lot of people are angry that he's been impeached again and that, he's on trial.
Sure.
And to be forward, I'm not that concerned about it. I mean, Trump's going to be fine regardless whether they remove him or not. His kids aren't going to starve. He's going to go off and still be Trump at his stuff. He's going to survive either way. He's not starving. He'll be fine. Whether they remove him or not, he'll be fine. Right. And he'll still be popular. Whether they remove him or not, he'll still be popular. My worry is exactly what Jonathan's talking about, which is now they're going to take the people who went to the Capitol and they're going to start putting them in jail. They're going to start locking them up. Mm-hmm. And again, as I've said more than once, there were some people who went down there with the intent to do harm, and they went there ready to do harm and did. Those people, I have no problem locking them up. The rest of them, if we're about healing and forgiveness, as Biden says, mm-hmm. if President Biden's right, and that's what he says, then it's time to let those guys just go home.
Correct.
Just let it go. That's my bigger worry, is that because while Trump will be fine either way, those people won't be.
Right. His followers won't be, and the private citizen won't be. Try the people who entered the Capitol. Try them if they attempted to murder that police officer that so many people saw the picture of. Absolutely, put those people in prison and charge them with assault. Charge someone with attempted murder for all I care if they tried to murder a police officer. But people who attended the rally and where they were around the Capitol being tried as domestic terrorists is the exact opposite of getting people who have no harm and have committed no violent act in prison. The people that I've heard the Democrats advocating for years, and I'm for too. I'm for criminal justice reform, and I'm for getting people out of prison for nonsensical crimes, but I'm not going to add another federal offense just because you don't like the cause that they were standing for. I'm not going to do that, and I would defend any if these were Democrats, socialists protesting Donald Trump getting elected, and they did the same thing. They still shouldn't be tried as domestic terrorists for a new law just because you don't like somebody. Try them for what they did wrong, and let it be done.
But I would actually go further than you. I don't even want to try the people who entered the Capitol. Sure. I don't. And simply I'm crazy for it.
I don't either. It's just for the crime of entering and assaulting people within the Capitol. If they assault somebody within the Capitol and attack staffers, then try them. But no, there shouldn't be no offense added to anybody. Just try the people who committed a crime. We're 100% agreed. Yeah.
If you enter the Capitol, I wouldn't try you for that either. If you enter the Capitol, then through a fire extinguisher, a cop, yes.
Go ahead, try it.
Not for entering, for throwing the fire extinguisher.
Yeah, there shouldn't be no federal offenses added to these people just because they were present. That makes no sense.
That's what I'm saying, and I hope that's going to happen. But to be forward, Kenny, I'm not sure.
No, I'm not sure. People concentrate on something that either pisses people off or makes people happy so much, and what makes people feel good to pass a law, and that's the main problem with our country right now, in my opinion.
So there's a specific question for you here,
sure.
From Keith. Question for Kenny. There is a Newsweek article that said 30,000 Republicans quit their party after January 20th. Are you concerned about this statistic, and how do you plan to win back these people? Do you have a comment on that?
I saw that article as well. I forgot who it was by. I think this is a reactionary sort of poll. I think this is a reactionary sort of, are you going to leave the Republican Party? That would, in essence, to me, mean that they're not going to vote. But I think when they start to do these policies start to affect them, if they do things like gun confiscation, if they make a limit on ammo, if they start to attack people's personal rights, and they're affected by these Democrat governors in this COVID-19 lockdown, they're going to end up voting the same way they ever voted. Now, I think there's a anger at the establishment GOP for not fighting enough for their guy, and I understand that anger, but I don't really buy the necessity of them leaving the party. I think that they may not be as passionate. There may not be. I think that's absolutely true. And they may vote for MAGA candidates, like they may vote for a Republican primary challenger, because those people know that if their district is in, let's say, Liz Cheney's, right, and they have a MAGA candidate that's advocating against the neocon, this woman voted to impeach Donald Trump, come vote for me. The same people who said they're going to leave the party are going to go vote for that primary opponent.
Oh, I got it. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay,
so right. I think it's a reactionary sort of emotion poll, in my opinion.
Sam says the biggest problem America has is cultural. I think that's true. Yes, we don't respect each other's culture.
Agreed.
That's the issue, and it's much more. It isn't really red state versus blue state. It's really urban versus rural.
Absolutely.
It really is that. I mean, the upstate New York parts are as red as West Virginia. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's the same. And the blue parts of Pennsylvania are as blue as those in New York. It's absolutely. So, all right. President Gray / VP Sharpe could do wonders. Yes, but too late. But yes, absolutely. That would be amazing. I appreciate that. Yes.
I live in just a quick. Can I answer that question just really quickly?
Yeah, please, absolutely. I
live in a rural area, right? I live in the Appalachian Mountains here in Cocke County, and I absolutely believe that's a problem. And I'm one of the Republicans, ironically enough, that hates hillbilly elegy by J.D. Vance. I know a lot of Republicans like it, but there is a culture war going on right now there too. Unfortunately, a lot of my community and a lot of people around me are in just as much poverty as somebody from Chicago, right? Chicago and Memphis and all these other cities and urban areas are given aid. They're put into the spotlight because of their economic harms that they're going through in their culture. But my people are looked at it as a bunch of poor old white people drinking moonshine out of jugs. So right. I think there's a problem between urban and rural demonization. I think rural demonization is a very huge problem in the United States right now, especially hillbilly and southern demonization. We're just looked at as a bunch of racist Republicans who keep voting for our own demise, unfortunately. So I think that is a bad
the Saturday Night Live skit. I actually put it on one of my shows once. It's a Saturday Night Live skit called Black Jeopardy.
Yes, I have saw it actually.
Two black women are playing along with the white guy who's played by
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, yes. Mm-hmm. And he's like a poor Southern guy.
Yeah, with the MAGA hat on.
Yes. And they're all like, they get it. Like they're all connecting. Yeah. Because there's one thing that they all understand. It's poverty. Like you just said.
Poverty.
It's lack of opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And we're more alike than people think we are. Yeah.
Absolutely. They totally connect because they're both lacking opportunity and both struggling for poverty. Yes, I agree. That's one of my favorite Saturday Night Live skits. I love that one.
Mine too.
Yes. So, all right. So Pete Cocke always has to say national debt. That's like the thing. It is.
It is bad.
It is.
It's by long God. It's bad.
Shelley says, I think the other way around. Tea Party should join the Libertarian Party. Welcome, Tea Party. I'd love to have you. So come on aboard. I'll take all of you guys, 100%. So yes, I'm greedy. I want 7 billion libertarians. That's what I want. 7 billion. Absolutely.
Understandable.
So what about election security reform? And this is a big piece that, I think about constantly. There are a lot of people who think, oh my God, the election is so secure, the most secure election ever. Okay, I'm all right with you believe in that. There's also tens of millions of Americans who think exactly the opposite.
Yeah. And
this goes back to our respect piece. We're not even respecting that they feel this way, even if you disagree. Right? Even if you think, they're all crazy. It was the safest election ever. Okay, maybe it was. I mean, I haven't gone down the rabbit hole, but for the sake of argument, it's the safest election ever. Okay, but you've got tens of millions of Americans who don't believe that. Don't you have to deal with that?
Yeah, and I think the way you deal with it is the same way Florida dealt with it in 2000. In 2000, after Florida was put in the spotlight with the Supreme Court case, they had statewide election and voting system reform. In the same way, you actually point out issues that happen. It is very hard. I understand the people who think the election was stolen. I don't necessarily believe that. But I do believe there are significant problems with mail-in ballots. There's significant problems with ballot signature. There's significant problems with people being able to come over the border and vote and go back to Tennessee or wherever they're from. And that happen a lot in Georgia. If you don't have a ballot signature of somebody who has lived at your home or know somebody that you live in Georgia itself, you're allowed to vote. Same day voter registration is a very bad thing. There are issues that we need to address, and
that's my issue. I don't believe the election was stolen, but again, I'm not going to walk down that rabbit hole for a very important reason. It doesn't matter.
No,
that's the sad part. It doesn't matter, right? No. Whether it was or wasn't, that doesn't matter.
It's over.
With that in mind, I do think we should have an investigation as to what's going on. I think we should, and I think we should fix the holes. And I think you're right. The best way of doing that is by having each state start to go through their own systems and make it better. Because what I am sure of is there are some irregularities. Of course there are. Mm-hmm. So let's begin to repair them now. Because my biggest worry is if we don't repair them now, some people are never going to trust the election again.
That's the problem. That's what happened in Georgia. Republicans in, I think, South Georgia were down like a 70% turnout wise from November. I mean, the same election they voted in November, they were down, 70% because they don't trust the election systems and they don't trust it. I mean, it's not necessarily a battle of, the election was stolen, ooga booga. That's not the point that we need to hinge on. It's actual policy reform. It's allowing, maybe even advocating for paper ballots. Now we use Dominion system voting system machines here too, but I'd be okay with going back to paper ballots if they're more reliable. I'm okay with us saying let's be a little bit more restrictive on mail-in ballots so there's not as many problems. Have ballot signature verification and don't allow people to register the same day of the election.
My point is maybe we go to paper ballots. I don't know that to be true, but I'm saying maybe we go to paper ballots, even if they're not more or less secure, but just so that people see we care. Right. That we're respecting them and saying you're concerned. So let's make some changes.
Yes.
Let's make some changes.
If it means more people vote, that's what matters. That's all.
Bingo. Exactly correct. If more people are voting, I'm in. Yes, absolutely. So, by the way, there's the link to the Sharpe Way merch if anybody wants to go there. Please enjoy. Yes. So, Michael says, I registered as a Republican in 2016 to vote for Rand Paul in the Republican primary, which you talked about. Mm-hmm. Right? Back to Libertarian now. Too bad Rand Paul dropped out. Well, there we go. So just what you were talking about. So people are doing that. Yes.
Yep.
So
thank you for your primary vote.
There we go. Jonathan says MAGA is an ally of the LP and Libertarians in general? ? These are people who support a president who supports legalized thievery of private property. Oh, yeah. He's jumping on. Yeah. Yes. That's. Yeah.
Civil asset forfeiture. Is that they're referring to?
Civil asset forfeiture, eminent domain. Yes. Jonathan, you're right. With a little caveat, you're correct, and so does every other president.
Yeah,
but yes,
that's the main issue. I'm personally against civil asset forfeiture. For what it's worth, there's a lot of Republicans. A bill is introduced every year in the Tennessee House of Representatives to abolish that and reform that. So I'm against civil asset forfeiture. So
yes, absolutely. Adrienne says, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds." Bob Marley. Thank you. Yes, I am a Bob Marley. Yes, absolutely. So let me see if I can grab a couple more.
Okay.
Libertarians want to shrink government. That is counter what Democrats and Republicans want. We are a threat to them. Ooh, I like that. See, we're a threat to you guys. See that? We're a threat.
Trying to draw us against each other, Larry. I want to shrink government too. I'm just have an R beside my name.
Say again?
I said I want to shrink government too. I just have an R beside my name.
Okay, there we go. All right, there we go. All right. So Jimmy says, Trump originally ran as the outsider who wanted to drain the swamp and fix America. We may use different lingo, but that pretty much the same message as libertarians. That's true, and it's why so many libertarians actually did support Trump, right? Mm-hmm. That's the reason. You're right. His rhetoric was much better in 2016. I think, and this is my view, I think his rhetoric in 2020 was terrible compared to 2016
Yeah, I think
he ran a worse campaign.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yes, he didn't run either as an outsider or as, promises made, promises kept. Neither one of those two, and he should have done one or the other, and he didn't.
Right.
So,
right. Well, AIM was I think it was more of a populist sort of campaign language being made simple, a movement in 2016 and 2020. It was just sort of trying to embark on his accomplishments and going more anti. So I think it was less exciting and less energetic. Even if he used some of the same campaign issues, it was far less energetic solely because he had been in office and done a lot of things that he campaigned on already. So what else was there to go off of besides successes?
Right. He says, instead of creating a Patriot Party, we can just reach out to them and have them come to our tribe. Our tribe is always open. So yes, come on over. I'm open. Not every libertarian is so open though. That's for sure. Not everyone is. So yeah, there we go. So Gene says, Biden is signing executive orders to circumvent our Constitution. That's what executive orders have become. Yes, and most people don't know that the executive order was supposed to be not a law, but it was supposed to be to explain how to enforce a law. Right. That's what it was supposed to be, right? There'd be a law that would say you have to make sure there's 14 trees on every street. And the president would go, okay, how am I going to enforce that? And he'd write down, hey, cops, go do these things to make sure there are 14 trees on each street. Right. So executive orders were meant to be to explain how you would actually do it. And then they became now they're laws. So yes, absolutely. So, well, I appreciate that. I guess the only thing I want to bring up here real fast is, man, has the world changed because this GameStop thing when AOC and Ted Cruz are on the same side.
Yeah, it's a very strange predicament we're in right now. Although I have to say that I love it because you know why Wall Street's mad for once is because private citizens have done something instead of the federal government. Instead of the federal government, supporting them and making sure that that patting them on the back, making sure they're okay. Private citizens have bucked them and changed the system. So if it's fighting against Wall Street without using federal government power, I'm all for it. Good job, Redditors.
I love it. So Kenny, let me ask before we wrap this up, anything you want to bring up that I haven't brought up? And by the way, for people who want more on Kenny, head over to Twitter, KD Cody TN for that awesome state, Tennessee. Anything you want to bring up?
I think one last thing. I'll have a lot of people ask me on Twitter, what do you think is going to happen with impeachment, conviction, removal, stuff like that. There's one argument that I have solely, and I'm not towards Trump, not against Trump or anything. There is I don't know if you ever heard the case of the impeachment of William Blount, Larry?
No.
Have you heard of that? Okay, so William Blount was a Tennessee senator in the 1700s. In 1799, he left office and tried to start his own country. So what the House of Representatives and Senate was going to do was actually impeach him while he was out of office and after he had resigned. So it's really similar to what Trump's going through right now, right? So what happened was William Blount was found impeached by the House of Representatives. The articles were sent to the Senate, but there was a problem. In the Constitution, there is a word called civil officer, and that's really the only definition when it talks about impeachment that can be tried as a private citizen. Only a civil officer, because it's elective officers, it's Senate, it's bureaucrats or whoever's been appointed to a cabinet can be impeached, stuff like that. But the only way to impeach a president outside of office is through the civil officer definition. And ultimately, William Blount was found not to be a civil officer, like 14-11 when the U.S. Senate was really small. So I just to acknowledge that, and I know that people have asked me, do I think Trump should be impeached? And it's sort of an avoidance. It is a constitutional thing for me. I don't believe he's a civil officer, just as William Blount wasn't. And
let me go down to this next thing. If that's true, if that's true, then in theory, what a president could do is simply do a bunch of bad things before they leave office, and just leave office, and we couldn't do anything because they're no longer in office.
Right.
I'm not sure that would make a whole lot of sense. I mean, you literally just go, let me do terrible things and resign. And then you're okay.
I think when the Constitution says so, the Constitution says so. When somebody's a civil officer, and like I said, I think where the problem relies is defining that definition. And that's why I believe the Senate wouldn't. I'm not saying he should or shouldn't, but I don't believe that the Senate would, because all the constitutional lawyers they have in there. If people are textualists and they're originalists and things of that sort, I don't believe that is going to happen. Not the definition of whether it should, but I believe with the constitutional lawyers and people who say they're for the Constitution, when you have 50 Republicans.
What about the idea that the impeachment began when he was president, right? They didn't start the impeachment when he was civilian, right? They started it when he was the president. So should they get to finish it, even if he resigns, or even if he quits, or even if he loses office? Since it began, he was the president when they began the process. This is simply the process. Isn't that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes plenty of sense, and that's what happened with Blunt. He was impeached. He was impeached by the House of Representatives, but I think that in part comes to the conviction part of the Constitution, to convict somebody as a civil officer, to define a former official as a civil officer, and then convict him. So I believe if it went to a vote of a civil officer, it wouldn't be, because he's now a private citizen. He's golfing in Florida. There's nothing really he can do right now. So let's just not convict him because he's out of office. And it's not necessarily that it should or shouldn't happen. I just believe based on precedent, because of where William Blunt wasn't found to be a civil officer, I don't think Donald Trump will be either.
Okay. All right. I appreciate the conversation, guys. I think this is great, Kenny. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely.
Everybody else, thank you so much for all the comments that we got. There's so many more. If you want to go through them later, Kenny, you can go through theirs. I just grabbed the ones that popped up at me. There's so many of them. People are very interested in this conversation. I appreciate you coming out. Please stay in touch, and hopefully in the future, we'll see if you were right or I was right, or we were both right or both wrong. We'll find out.
I'll come back on and see if I'm right or wrong, and I'll admit when I'm wrong or right.
I love it. All right. Have a good one. Everybody, thank you so much for coming out today. I will see you all tomorrow.